Sarah Mitchell stood at her kitchen window, watching her neighbor Marcus Thompson help his 8-year-old daughter Emma with her bicycle in the driveway next door. The sight made her heart ache in ways she couldn't fully explain. It had been 3 months since her divorce from David was finalized, and she was still adjusting to life as a single mother with her 6-year-old son Jake. Marcus had moved into the house next door about a year ago, after his wife died in a car accident. Sarah remembered the moving trucks, the quiet man who barely made eye contact with anyone, and the little girl who seemed too serious for someone so young. The neighborhood had buzzed with whispered conversations about the tragedy, but no one really knew what to say or how to help. Sarah had tried to be a good neighbor. She'd brought over casseroles during those first few weeks, offered to watch Emma when Marcus needed to run errands, and made sure Jake included Emma in backyard games when possible. But Marcus had politely declined most offers, clearly struggling to navigate his new reality as a single father while dealing with his own grief. Now, as she watched him patiently hold the back of Emma's bike while she wobbled forward, Sarah felt a strange mixture of admiration and loneliness. Marcus was trying so hard to be everything Emma needed, just like Sarah was trying to be everything Jake needed. The difference was that Marcus seemed to handle everything with quiet strength, while Sarah often felt like she was barely keeping her head above water. Jake bounded into the kitchen, his hair messy from sleep despite it being nearly noon on this Saturday. "Mom, can I have pancakes?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her waist from behind. "Of course, sweetie," Sarah replied, ruffling his hair. "Why don't you go get dressed first?" As Jake ran upstairs, Sarah continued watching Marcus and Emma through the window. Emma had let go of her father's steadying hand and was pedaling on her own, a huge grin spreading across her face. Marcus clapped and cheered, and for the first time since Sarah had known him, she saw him genuinely smile. The moment was interrupted by Jake calling from upstairs. "Mom, I can't find my soccer cleats." Sarah sighed and headed upstairs to help him search. Jake had a game that afternoon, and she'd promised to take him out for ice cream afterward if his team won. These were the moments when being a single parent felt overwhelming. David used to handle the sports equipment while she managed breakfast. Now she juggled everything alone. After finding the cleats buried under a pile of clothes in Jake's closet, Sarah started making pancakes. Through the kitchen window, she could see Marcus and Emma had gone inside. She wondered what they did with their Saturday afternoons. Emma was in the same grade as Jake at Riverside Elementary, but the two children had different groups of friends and rarely played together outside of the occasional neighborhood gathering. The pancakes were nearly ready when Sarah heard a knock at the front door. She wiped her hands on a dish towel and went to answer it, surprised to find Marcus standing on her porch. He looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. "Hi, Marcus. Is everything okay?" Sarah asked, noticing he seemed more nervous than usual. "I hope I'm not bothering you," Marcus began, his voice quiet. "I was wondering if I could ask you for some advice. It's about Emma." Sarah's heart immediately went out to him. "Of course, come in. Would you like some coffee?" Marcus nodded gratefully and followed her into the kitchen. Sarah poured 2 cups of coffee and gestured for him to sit at the kitchen table. Jake thundered down the stairs, fully dressed in his soccer uniform. "Hi, Mr. Thompson," Jake said brightly before grabbing a plate of pancakes and sitting down. "Hello, Jake. Ready for your game today?" Marcus asked, making an effort to sound cheerful for the boys' sake. "Yep, we're gonna crush the Tigers," Jake declared through a mouthful of pancakes. Sarah smiled at her son's enthusiasm, then turned her attention back to Marcus. "What's going on with Emma?" Marcus ran a hand through his dark hair, a gesture Sarah had noticed he made when he was stressed. "There's a father-daughter dance at school next month. Emma's teacher sent home the flyer yesterday, and Emma's been asking about it all morning. She wants to go, but—" His voice trailed off. Sarah understood immediately. "You're worried about dancing with her?" "It's not just the dancing," Marcus admitted. "I don't know anything about those kinds of events. What should she wear?" "How do I do her hair?" "My wife always handled things like that. I feel like I'm failing her in so many ways." Jake finished his pancakes and asked to be excused so he could play video games before his soccer game. Once he was gone, Sarah leaned forward slightly. "Marcus, you're not failing her. I see how hard you try, how much you care about her. Emma's lucky to have a father who wants to make sure she doesn't miss out on special experiences. But I don't know what I'm doing," Marcus said, his frustration evident. "Yesterday she asked me to braid her hair and it looked terrible. She didn't complain, but I could tell she wasn't happy with it. And now this dance. I want to take her, but I'm terrified I'll embarrass her or do something wrong. Sarah felt her chest tighten with empathy. She remembered her own fears about handling dad duties after David left, teaching Jake to throw a football, helping him with his Pinewood Derby car for scouts, being the only parent at events where other kids had both mom and dad present. What if I helped you? Sarah offered impulsively. I could teach you some basic hairstyles, help you pick out a dress for Emma, maybe even give you some dancing lessons so you feel more confident. Marcus looked up at her with surprise and something that might have been hope. You would do that? Of course. We single parents need to stick together, right? For the first time since she'd known him, Marcus's smile reached his eyes. That would be amazing, Sarah. Thank you. As they made plans to start the lessons the following week, Sarah felt something shift inside her. Maybe helping Marcus wouldn't just benefit him and Emma. Maybe it would help her feel useful and needed in a way she hadn't experienced since her marriage ended. She had no idea that this simple offer of help would change everything for both of their families. The following Tuesday evening, Marcus knocked on Sarah's door with Emma by his side. The little girl carried a small bag containing hair ties, a brush, and a hopeful expression. Sarah had spent the afternoon watching YouTube tutorials on simple hairstyles appropriate for an 8-year-old, determined to help Marcus succeed. Come in, both of you, Sarah said warmly. Jake's upstairs doing homework, so we'll have the kitchen table to ourselves. Emma seemed more animated than Sarah had ever seen her. Mrs. Mitchell, Daddy said you're going to teach him how to make my hair pretty like the other girls at school. Sarah's heart melted at the child's excitement. That's right, sweetie. And you can call me Sarah if you want. Marcus looked nervous as Sarah set up a chair at the kitchen table and gathered the hair supplies. I feel like I should be taking notes, he joked, though there was genuine anxiety in his voice. Don't worry, we'll start simple, Sarah assured him. Emma, why don't you sit here while I show your daddy how to make a basic ponytail first? For the next hour, Sarah patiently demonstrated different hairstyles, while Marcus watched intently and practiced. Emma giggled when her father's first attempt at a side braid looked more like a twisted mess, but she was encouraging rather than critical. It's okay. Daddy, Mommy's hair used to look funny when she was learning too, Emma said quietly, and Sarah noticed Marcus's jaw tighten at the mention of his late wife. Your mommy was probably much better at this than I am, Marcus replied softly, smoothing Emma's hair gently. Maybe, but you're trying really hard and that makes me happy, Emma said. Turning around to hug her father, Sarah felt tears prick her eyes at the tender moment between father and daughter. She could see how much Marcus loved Emma and how desperately he wanted to be everything she needed. All right, let's try the French braid one more time, Sarah said, clearing her throat to regain her composure. Remember, cross the right section over the middle, then add a little bit of hair from the side. By the end of the evening, Marcus had successfully completed a neat ponytail, a simple side braid, and was getting the hang of a basic French braid. Emma was thrilled with each attempt, and Sarah could see Marcus's confidence growing. This is amazing, Marcus said as he admired his handiwork in the mirror Sarah had brought down. Emma, what do you think? I love it, Daddy. Can you do this braid for school tomorrow? We'll practice again tomorrow night to make sure I don't forget, Marcus promised. After they left, Sarah cleaned up the kitchen and reflected on the evening. There had been something deeply satisfying about helping Marcus and Emma. She'd felt useful and needed in a way that had nothing to do with her own struggles or failures. For those 2 hours, she hadn't thought once about her divorce, her loneliness, or her fears about raising Jake alone. The next weekend, Sarah took Emma shopping for a dress for the father-daughter dance. Marcus had offered to pay for everything, but Sarah had insisted they split the cost. She wanted Emma to have something special, and she enjoyed having a reason to spend time in the children's formal wear section. Emma tried on several dresses before settling on a navy blue dress with tiny silver stars scattered across the skirt. When she twirled in the dressing room, her face lit up with pure joy. Do you think Daddy will like it? Emma asked, looking at herself in the mirror. I think your daddy will think you look absolutely beautiful, Sarah replied honestly. But more importantly, do you like it? I love it. I feel like a princess. They bought matching silver shoes and a small silver headband to complete the outfit. On the drive home, Emma chattered excitedly about the dance, asking Sarah questions about what to expect and whether her father would really be able to dance with her without stepping on her feet. "Your daddy's been practicing," Sarah told her with a smile, thinking about the previous evening when Marcus had come over alone for dance lessons after Emma was asleep. Teaching Marcus to dance had been both easier and harder than Sarah had expected. He was naturally graceful and picked up the basic steps quickly, but he seemed self-conscious about the intimacy of partner dancing, even in the context of a father-daughter dance. "I feel ridiculous," Marcus had admitted after they'd run through a simple waltz several times in Sarah's living room. "You look fine," Sarah had assured him. "Emma won't care if you miss a step or two. She'll just be happy that you're there with her, making her feel special." "I hope so. I want this to be a good memory for her, something she can look back on and smile about." Sarah had seen the depth of his love for Emma in that moment, and something had shifted in her chest. She'd found herself noticing things about Marcus she hadn't paid attention to before. The way he listened carefully when people spoke, the gentle way he touched Emma's shoulder when he was proud of her, the quiet strength he showed in handling challenges that would have overwhelmed many people. That Thursday evening, Marcus brought Emma over for one final hair practice session. This time Jake joined them at the kitchen table, fascinated by the process. "Why don't girls just keep their hair short like mine?" Jake asked, watching his mother guide Marcus through an elaborate updo. "Some girls do," Sarah explained. "But Emma likes her hair long and she wants to look fancy for the dance." "Can I go to a dance with you, Mom?" Jake asked suddenly. Sarah paused in her demonstration, touched by the question. "There aren't really mother-son dances at your school, sweetie. But we could have our own dance party in the living room anytime you want." "Cool. Can we do that this weekend?" "Absolutely." Marcus caught Sarah's eye over Emma's head and smiled. It was a different kind of smile than she'd seen from him before. Warmer, more intimate somehow. Sarah felt her cheeks flush and looked away, focusing on Emma's hair with sudden intensity. "I think we've got this mastered," she announced, stepping back to admire the elegant bun she'd helped Marcus create. "You'll do great at the dance." As Marcus and Emma prepared to leave, Emma threw her arms around Sarah's waist. "Thank you for helping Daddy learn how to make me pretty. You're the best helper ever. It was my pleasure, sweetheart. I hope you have the most wonderful time at the dance." Marcus lingered in the doorway after Emma skipped ahead to their house. "Sarah, I can't thank you enough for everything you've done. You've given Emma something I never could have managed on my own. You're doing a great job, Marcus. Emma's lucky to have you." "I don't know about that. But I'm starting to feel like maybe I'm not completely hopeless at this single-parent thing." After they left, Sarah sat at her kitchen table, still able to smell Marcus's cologne faintly in the air. She realized that somewhere in the process of helping him prepare for Emma's special night, she'd begun to care about both of them in ways that went far beyond neighborly concern. The thought both thrilled and terrified her. The night of the father-daughter dance arrived with unseasonable warmth for early spring. Sarah found herself checking the clock every few minutes, wondering how Marcus and Emma were doing at their special event. She'd helped Emma get ready that afternoon, carefully recreating the elegant updo they'd practiced and watching as the little girl transformed into a princess before their eyes. Marcus had looked handsome in his navy suit, and Sarah had felt an unexpected flutter in her stomach when he'd asked her to take pictures of him and Emma before they left. The way he'd looked at his daughter with such pride and love had made Sarah's heart ache with something she couldn't quite name. Jake was spending the night at his friend Tommy's house, leaving Sarah alone with her thoughts and a pint of ice cream. She tried to focus on a movie, but her mind kept drifting to the image of Marcus dancing with Emma, both of them glowing with happiness. Around 9 o'clock, her doorbell rang. Sarah opened it to find Marcus and Emma on her porch, both beaming with excitement. "Sarah, we had to come tell you about the dance," Emma exclaimed, practically bouncing on her toes. "It was the best night ever." Come in," Sarah said, laughing at Emma's enthusiasm. "I want to hear everything." Emma launched into an animated description of the evening while Marcus helped her out of her shoes and smoothed her hair, which had held up remarkably well throughout the night. "And Daddy didn't step on my feet even once," Emma declared. "Well, maybe just a tiny bit during the fast song, but it didn't hurt. And Mrs. Peterson said my hair looked like something from a magazine." Sarah glanced at Marcus, who looked more relaxed and confident than she'd ever seen him. "It sounds like you both had an amazing time." "We did," Marcus said softly. Emma was the most beautiful girl there, and she danced like she'd been taking lessons for years. "That's because Daddy's a good teacher now," Emma said loyally. "Sarah, you should have seen all the other daddies watching us dance." "I think they were jealous because Daddy knew all the right steps." Sarah felt a warm glow of pride at playing a role in their successful evening. "I'm so happy for both of you." "Actually," Marcus said, seeming suddenly nervous again, "Emma has something she wants to ask you." Emma nodded eagerly. "Sarah, will you come to my birthday party next month? I'm turning 9 and Daddy said I can invite anyone I want. I want you and Jake to come because you're like family now." Sarah felt tears spring to her eyes at Emma's innocent declaration. "Of course we'll come, sweetie. We wouldn't miss it for the world." After they left, Sarah sat in her quiet living room thinking about Emma's words. "You're like family now." When had that happened? When had Marcus and Emma stopped being just neighbors and become people she cared about deeply? The answer came to her gradually over the following days. It had happened slowly in small moments. When Marcus had started bringing Emma over for impromptu dinners when he was running late from work. When Sarah had found herself saving funny articles to share with him over coffee. When Jake had started asking to play with Emma more often. And the two children had developed a genuine sibling-like friendship. 2 weeks after the dance, Sarah was in her backyard hanging laundry when she heard Emma crying next door. The sound was heartbreaking. Not the angry tears of a tantrum, but the deep, inconsolable sobs of genuine heartbreak. Sarah dropped the sheet she was hanging and hurried to the fence separating their yards. "Emma, honey, what's wrong?" Emma was sitting on her back porch steps, her face streaked with tears. "I miss Mommy so much," she said between sobs. "Today is the anniversary of when she went to heaven and Daddy's trying not to cry, but I can see that he's really sad." Sarah's heart broke for both of them. Without hesitation, she went through the gate that connected their backyards and sat down beside Emma on the steps. "It's okay to miss your mommy," Sarah said gently, putting an arm around the little girl, "and it's okay to cry when you're sad. Your daddy probably needs to cry too." "But I don't want Daddy to be sad," Emma sniffled. "He works so hard to take care of me and make me happy. I try to be good so he won't worry, but sometimes I just miss Mommy so much it hurts in my chest." Sarah pulled Emma closer, feeling her own tears threatening to fall. "You know what? Missing someone you love means that you love them very much. That's not something to hide or be ashamed of. And your daddy loves you so much that he wants you to feel safe talking to him about your feelings." "Really? Really. And if you ever want to talk about your mommy with someone, I'm here to listen. Sometimes it helps to share memories of people we love." Emma was quiet for a moment, then looked up at Sarah with red-rimmed eyes. "Will you tell me about when you were sad about your divorce? Daddy said that's when mommies and daddies stopped living together." Sarah took a deep breath. She'd tried to shield Jake from most of her own pain. But Emma's question was so direct and innocent that she felt compelled to be honest. "When Jake's daddy and I decided we couldn't live together anymore, I was very sad and scared," Sarah admitted. "I worried that I wouldn't be a good enough mom all by myself, and I felt lonely a lot. But you know what helped me feel better?" "What? Meeting you and your daddy? When I saw how brave and strong your daddy was taking care of you all by himself, it made me feel like maybe I could be brave and strong too. And when you and Jake became friends, it made our house feel happy again." Emma seemed to consider this. "So sometimes sad things can lead to good things?" "Sometimes they can, sweetheart. Not always, and it doesn't make the sad things less sad. But sometimes we find new kinds of happiness we didn't expect." The back door opened and Marcus appeared, looking haggard and worried. When he saw Sarah sitting with Emma, his expression shifted to one of gratitude mixed with embarrassment. "I'm sorry, Sarah. I didn't know Emma had come outside. Today is difficult for us." "Don't apologize," Sarah said firmly. "I'm glad I was here." Marcus sat down on Emma's other side, and Sarah was struck by how natural it felt, the three of them together like this. Emma leaned against her father, and Marcus put his arm around both Emma and Sarah without seeming to realize what he'd done. "Daddy, Sarah says it's okay to miss Mommy and that you need to cry too sometimes," Emma said softly. Marcus's jaw worked silently for a moment, and Sarah could see him struggling with his emotions. Finally, he spoke in a voice thick with unshed tears. "Your mommy would be so proud of the young lady you're becoming, Emma, and she would want us to help each other through the sad days." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. Sarah felt a profound sense of belonging, as if this broken little family had somehow become whole with her presence. She didn't analyze the feeling too deeply, afraid that examining it too closely might make it disappear. Emma's 9th birthday party was planned for a Saturday afternoon in early May. Sarah had offered to help with the preparations, and she found herself completely absorbed in making the day special for the little girl who had become so dear to her. The morning of the party, Sarah arrived at Marcus's house early with homemade decorations and Jake in tow, both of them ready to transform the backyard into a birthday wonderland. Marcus looked overwhelmed but grateful as Sarah began organizing party activities and arranging the decorations they'd made together during the week. "I don't know how single parents manage events like this," Marcus confessed as he struggled to blow up balloons while simultaneously trying to set up folding chairs. "You don't have to manage it alone," Sarah replied, taking the balloon pump from him. "That's what friends are for." The word friends felt inadequate for what they'd become, but Sarah wasn't ready to examine what they actually were to each other. Over the past month, their lives had become increasingly intertwined. Marcus picked up Jake from school when Sarah had to work late. Sarah cooked dinner for all 4 of them at least 3 times a week. The children moved freely between both houses, treating the space as one extended home. Emma's party was a success. 8 little girls from her class arrived with presents and excitement, and the backyard filled with laughter and games. Sarah found herself working seamlessly alongside Marcus, anticipating what needed to be done, and moving in sync with him as if they'd been planning parties together for years. During the cake ceremony, as Emma made her wish and blew out 9 candles, Sarah caught Marcus looking at her with an expression that made her heart skip. There was something soft and wondering in his gaze, as if he was seeing her clearly for the first time. After the guests left and the children were playing quietly inside, Sarah and Marcus sat on his back porch cleaning up wrapping paper and empty plates. "Thank you," Marcus said quietly. "I couldn't have given her a party like this without you. I wouldn't have even known where to start. She deserves something special. She's such a sweet little girl, Marcus. You're raising her beautifully." Marcus was quiet for a long moment, methodically folding used napkins with unnecessary precision. Finally, he spoke without looking at her. "Sarah, can I ask you something personal?" "Of course. Do you ever think about dating again? I mean, do you want to find someone new?" The question caught Sarah off guard. She'd been so focused on healing from her divorce and adjusting to single motherhood that she hadn't given much thought to romance. Lately, though, she'd been aware of a growing attraction to Marcus that she'd been trying to ignore. "I don't know," she answered honestly. "I suppose eventually I might want to find someone, but right now I'm focused on Jake and rebuilding our life." "What about you?" Marcus finally looked at her, and Sarah was surprised by the intensity in his eyes. "I never thought I'd want to be with anyone after Lisa died. I couldn't imagine loving someone else or letting another person into Emma's life. But lately—" He trailed off, but Sarah could feel the weight of his unfinished words hanging between them. "Lately what?" she prompted gently. "Lately I find myself thinking that maybe Emma and I aren't meant to be alone forever. Maybe there's room in our lives for someone who could love us both." Sarah's heart began to race, but before she could respond, Jake and Emma burst through the back door, full of excitement about a game they wanted to play in the yard. The conversation was left unfinished, but it lingered in Sarah's mind over the following days. She began to notice things she'd been unconsciously ignoring. The way Marcus's hand brushed hers when they reached for the same dish while cooking together, the way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't paying attention, the comfort and ease that had developed between them. One evening, while the children were upstairs playing in Emma's room, Sarah and Marcus found themselves alone in his kitchen after dinner. They'd fallen into a routine where Sarah cooked and Marcus cleaned, but tonight they worked side by side at the sink, their shoulders bumping occasionally as they moved. "Sarah," Marcus said suddenly, setting down the plate he was drying, "I need to tell you something." Sarah turned to face him, noting the serious expression on his face. "What is it?" "Emma asked me something today that I didn't know how to answer." "What did she ask?" Marcus took a deep breath. "She asked if you were going to be her new mommy." Sarah felt the color drain from her face. "Oh, what did you tell her?" "I told her that you're a very special person in our lives, but that those kinds of decisions are complicated and involve grown-up feelings that are hard to explain." That was probably the right thing to say. Was it? Marcus stepped closer to her. close enough that Sarah could see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes. Because I'm not sure I was being completely honest with her. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. What do you mean? I mean that somewhere along the way, while you were teaching me to braid Emma's hair and helping me learn to dance and sitting with us during our sad moments, I stopped thinking of you as just a helpful neighbor. Marcus, I know this is complicated. I know we both have children to think about and our own histories to consider. But I can't pretend anymore that what I feel for you is just friendship or gratitude. Before Sarah could respond, Marcus reached up and gently touched her cheek. I think I'm falling in love with you, Sarah. And I think Emma already loves you like a mother. The question is, how do you feel about us? Sarah felt tears spring to her eyes. The answer had been growing in her heart for weeks, but she'd been afraid to acknowledge it even to herself. I love you both, she whispered. I love you and Emma so much it scares me sometimes. When I'm with you, I feel like I'm home in a way I haven't felt in years. Marcus smiled then, the first completely unguarded smile she'd ever seen from him. Really, really. But Marcus, we need to be careful. We have Jake and Emma to think about. We can't just rush into something without considering how it will affect them. I know, but maybe we can take it slow. See how everyone adjusts to the idea of us being more than friends. Sarah nodded, her heart full of hope and possibility. I'd like that very much. Marcus leaned down and kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promise. When they broke apart, Sarah realized that the sound of children's laughter had stopped upstairs. They looked toward the stairway to find Jake and Emma peeking around the corner, both grinning widely. Are you going to get married now? Emma asked with 9-year-old directness. Sarah and Marcus looked at each other and laughed, the tension of the moment breaking into something lighter and more joyful. We're going to take things one step at a time, sweetheart, Marcus replied. But what would you think if Sarah spent more time with us as more than just a friend? I think that would be the best thing ever, Emma declared, running down the stairs to hug both of them. Jake, we're going to be like real brother and sister. Jake joined the group hug with enthusiasm. Does this mean Sarah can help me with my Pinewood Derby car like a real mom would? Sarah laughed through her tears, overwhelmed by the love surrounding her. I think we can work something out. The summer that followed Marcus and Sarah's confession of love was filled with careful steps and joyful discoveries. They moved slowly, mindful of their children's emotional needs and their own healing hearts. What emerged was something beautiful and unexpected, a blended family that felt natural and right from the very beginning. Their first official date was a family picnic at the lake, with Jake and Emma as enthusiastic chaperones. Sarah packed the elaborate lunch while Marcus handled the logistics of chairs, blankets, and water toys. Watching him apply sunscreen to Emma's nose while simultaneously helping Jake untangle his fishing line, Sarah felt a surge of love so strong it nearly took her breath away. Mom, look, Jake called out, holding up a tiny fish he'd caught. Mr. Marcus taught me the right way to hold the fishing pole. Sarah smiled at her son's excitement. Jake had begun calling Marcus Mr. Marcus without any prompting, a sign of respect and affection that made both adults' hearts warm. Similarly, Emma had started calling Sarah by her first name instead of Mrs. Mitchell, a small but significant shift that indicated growing closeness. As the weeks passed, they established new routines that accommodated everyone's needs. Tuesday nights became family game night, alternating between both houses. Thursday evenings were reserved for one-on-one time. Marcus and Emma had their special daddy-daughter activities while Sarah and Jake enjoyed their mother-son bonding time. Weekends often found them together, whether working in the garden, attending Jake's soccer games, or helping Emma with art projects. The children adapted to the changes with remarkable resilience. Jake, who had struggled with his parents' divorce, seemed to blossom under Marcus's steady male influence. Marcus taught him practical skills like changing a bicycle tire and throwing a proper spiral. But more importantly, he provided a calm, consistent presence that helped Jake feel secure. Emma, meanwhile, flourished under Sarah's nurturing attention. The little girl who had seemed so serious and careful began to show more of her playful side. She started asking Sarah for advice about school friendships, sharing stories about her day, and seeking comfort during nightmares or difficult moments. One evening in late July, while the children were building a fort in Emma's bedroom, Marcus and Sarah sat on his front porch swing, watching fireflies dance across the yard. I have something to tell you, Marcus said, his voice carrying a mix of excitement and nervousness. Sarah turned to study his profile in the gathering dusk. "What is it?" "I got a call from my sister today. She wants to visit next month to meet you and see how Emma's doing. She's been worried about us since Lisa died, and I think she's curious about the woman who's made such a difference in our lives." Sarah felt a flutter of anxiety. "What have you told her about me?" "The truth. That you're kind and generous and that you've helped us become a real family again. That Emma adores you and that I—" He paused, reaching for her hand. "That I love you more than I thought possible." The words still made Sarah's heart race, even though they'd been saying them to each other for weeks now. "I'm nervous about meeting her. What if she doesn't approve of me?" "She will," Marcus said with confidence. "How could she not? But even if she didn't, it wouldn't change how I feel about you or what we're building together." Sarah squeezed his hand, drawing strength from his certainty. "When is she coming?" "The second weekend in August. She's bringing her husband and their twin boys. Emma's excited about having cousins to play with, and I thought Jake might enjoy having some boys his age around." "That sounds wonderful. We'll make sure they have a great visit." Marcus lifted their joined hands to his lips and kissed her knuckles gently. I love that word when it includes you." The visit from Marcus's sister Rebecca went better than Sarah had dared to hope. Rebecca was warm and welcoming, clearly delighted to see her brother happy and her niece thriving. She pulled Sarah aside on the second day of their visit for a private conversation that Sarah had been dreading. "I need to thank you," Rebecca said, as they watched the children play in the backyard. "Marcus was so lost after Lisa died. He was functioning, taking care of Emma, but he wasn't really living. When I talked to him on the phone, I could hear the emptiness in his voice. But now, Sarah prompted. Now he sounds like himself again. Actually, he sounds better than himself. He sounds like a man who's found his purpose again, who has hope for the future." Sarah felt tears prick her eyes. "I love them both so much, Rebecca. I never expected to feel this way again after my divorce. And Emma, I've never seen her so confident and happy. She talks about you constantly. Sarah taught me this, Sarah helped me with that, Sarah said I could. You've given her something she desperately needed, a mother figure who chose to love her." That evening, after Rebecca's family had gone to bed in the guest room, Sarah found herself alone with Marcus on the back porch. The house was quiet, filled with the peaceful exhaustion that comes after a day of family activities. "Your sister is wonderful," Sarah said, settling into the chair beside him. "She likes you. Actually, she loves you. She told me I'd be crazy to let you get away." Sarah laughed softly. "I'm not going anywhere." "Good, because I have something I want to ask you." Marcus's voice carried a nervous energy that made Sarah look at him more closely. He was fidgeting with something in his pocket, his usual calm demeanor replaced by barely contained excitement. "Marcus, what's going on?" Instead of answering, Marcus stood up and moved to kneel in front of her chair. Sarah's heart stopped as he pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. "Sarah, 6 months ago you offered to help me learn to braid Emma's hair, and somehow that simple act of kindness changed everything for both of our families. You didn't just teach me practical skills, you taught me how to hope again, how to love again, how to believe that broken families can become whole in unexpected ways." Sarah's hands flew to her mouth as Marcus opened the box to reveal a simple but elegant diamond. "Ring. Emma helped me pick it out," he continued, his voice thick with emotion. "She said it needed to sparkle like your smile and be strong like your hugs." Jake gave his approval too, though he was mainly concerned about whether this meant he could call me Dad. Sarah was crying now, overwhelmed by the love and thoughtfulness behind the proposal. "I know we haven't been together long in traditional terms, but we've been building something together for months. We've seen each other through difficult moments and celebrated joyful ones. We've proven that we can be a family together. Sarah, will you marry me? Will you let me love you and Jake for the rest of our lives?" "Yes," Sarah whispered, then louder. "Yes, of course, yes." Marcus slipped the ring onto her finger with trembling hands, then pulled her down for a kiss that tasted like tears and laughter and the promise of forever. Their kiss was interrupted by the sound of footsteps on the porch. They looked up to find all 4 children, Jake, Emma, and Rebecca's twin boys, peeking around the corner of the house. "Did she say yes?" Emma asked breathlessly. "She said yes," Marcus announced, and the children erupted in cheers and excited chatter. Emma ran to hug Sarah tightly. "Now you'll really be my mom." "I've felt like your mom for months, sweetheart," Sarah replied, holding the little girl close. This just makes it official. Jake approached more cautiously, still processing the magnitude of the change. So Marcus will really be my dad now? Marcus knelt down to Jake's level. Only if you want me to be, buddy. I would be honored to be your dad, but that's your choice to make. Jake considered this seriously for a moment, then nodded firmly. I want you to be my dad. But can I still call you Mr. Marcus sometimes? I like that name. You can call me whatever feels right to you, Marcus replied, pulling Jake into a hug. Rebecca appeared in the doorway, having been awakened by the children's excitement. When she saw the ring on Sarah's finger and the tears of joy on everyone's faces, she clapped her hands together in delight. I guess we're planning a wedding, she exclaimed. As the extended family gathered on the porch to celebrate the engagement, Sarah looked around at the faces of the people she loved most in the world. Jake was already deep in conversation with Marcus about wedding details. Emma was showing off Sarah's ring to her cousins, and Rebecca was taking pictures to capture the moment. This wasn't the life Sarah had planned for herself 2 years ago when her marriage was falling apart. It wasn't the future she'd imagined when she'd first offered to help her struggling single-father neighbor with his daughter's hair. But it was perfect in ways she could never have anticipated. Sometimes the most beautiful stories begin with the simplest acts of kindness. Sometimes helping someone else learn to be the parent they want to be teaches you how to open your heart to love again. And sometimes when you're brave enough to say, act like my husband to practice for a dance, you discover that the real dance is the one that leads to forever. Sarah and Marcus decided on a small fall wedding, wanting something intimate that would feel meaningful to their children rather than overwhelming. They chose the first Saturday in October, when the leaves would be turning colors and the weather would still be warm enough for an outdoor ceremony in Marcus's backyard, the same space where they'd shared so many important moments together. The planning process became a family affair. Emma appointed herself head of decorations, spending hours creating paper flowers and garlands with Sarah's guidance. Jake took charge of music selection, carefully curating a playlist that included songs both adults loved along with a few silly additions that made everyone laugh. Marcus handled the logistics with his typical quiet efficiency, while Sarah managed the catering and floral arrangements. 2 weeks before the wedding, Sarah's ex-husband David called unexpectedly. She hadn't heard from him since their divorce was finalized, and his voice on the phone made her stomach clench with old anxiety. I heard through Jake that you're getting married, David said without preamble. I wanted to talk to you about it. Sarah stepped outside onto her front porch, not wanting Jake to overhear the conversation. What about it, David? I want to make sure this guy is good enough for you and Jake. I know things didn't work out between us, but that doesn't mean I don't care about Jake's well-being. Despite their troubled history, Sarah was touched by David's concern. Marcus is a good man, David. He loves Jake like his own son, and Jake adores him. Jake seems different when I talk to him on the phone. Happier, more confident. Is that because of this Marcus guy? Partly, yes. Marcus has given Jake a stable male role model, someone who's consistent and present. But mostly Jake's happier because our whole family is happier now. David was quiet for a long moment. I'm glad, Sarah, I really am. I know I wasn't the husband you deserved, and I probably wasn't the father Jake deserved either. If this Marcus can give you both what I couldn't, then I'm grateful to him. The conversation ended on a surprisingly peaceful note, with David asking to meet Marcus before the wedding. Sarah arranged for them to have coffee together the following weekend, nervous about how the encounter would go. To her amazement, the meeting went well. David came to the house afterward to report that he approved of Marcus completely. He's solid, Sarah, really solid. And the way he talks about you and Jake, you can tell he loves you both deeply. Jake's lucky to have him as a stepdad. Thank you for saying that, David. It means a lot. And Sarah, I owe you an apology for everything that went wrong between us. For not being the partner you needed, for making you feel like you had to handle everything alone. You deserve to be loved the way Marcus loves you. Sarah felt a weight she hadn't realized she was carrying finally lift from her shoulders. Thank you, David. That means more than you know. The week before the wedding brought a flurry of final preparations and unexpected challenges. Emma came down with a cold that had everyone worried she might not be well enough to be the flower girl. Jake had a growth spurt that required emergency alterations to his ring-bearer outfit. Marcus's elderly father, who was traveling from Florida for the wedding, had his flight delayed by a storm. Through it all, Sarah found herself surprisingly calm. She'd been so stressed planning her first wedding years ago, desperate for everything to be perfect. This time she realized that the only thing that truly mattered was marrying Marcus and officially bringing their families together. Everything else was just details. The morning of the wedding dawned clear and crisp with golden sunlight filtering through the changing leaves. Sarah woke up in her own house for the last time as a single woman, since she and Jake would be moving in with Marcus and Emma after the honeymoon. Rebecca had arrived the night before and appointed herself Sarah's personal wedding coordinator, ensuring that every detail was handled so Sarah could focus on enjoying her special day. Emma, fully recovered from her cold, bounced around the house in her flower girl dress, scattering practice petals and radiating excitement. "You look like a princess, Sarah," Emma declared when Sarah emerged from her bedroom in her wedding dress, a simple but elegant ivory dress that she'd chosen specifically because it would be appropriate for a backyard wedding with children. "Present. Thank you, sweetheart. You look pretty beautiful yourself." Jake appeared in the doorway wearing his miniature version of Marcus's suit, looking both nervous and proud. "Mom, are you sure about this?" "I mean, I want you to marry Mr. Marcus, but what if something goes wrong?" Sarah knelt down to Jake's level, careful not to wrinkle her dress. "What could go wrong, baby?" "What if you change your mind? What if Mr. Marcus changes his mind? What if Emma and I don't get along as brother and sister?" Sarah's heart ached at the vulnerability in her son's voice. Even though he'd been excited about the wedding, it was natural for him to have some fears about such a big change. "Jake, listen to me. Marcus and I love each other very much, and we both love you and Emma very much. We've been living like a family for months now, and that's not going to change just because we're making it official today. If anything, you'll feel even more secure because you'll know that we're all committed to taking care of each other forever. Promise?" "I promise, sweetheart. Today isn't about changing our family. It's about celebrating the family we've already become." The ceremony was perfect in its simplicity. 40 friends and family members gathered in Marcus's backyard, which had been transformed with Emma's handmade decorations and arrangements of fall flowers. Jake walked down the makeshift aisle first, carrying the rings on a small pillow with utmost seriousness. Emma followed, tossing rose petals with dramatic flair that made everyone smile. When Sarah appeared at the back of the gathering, Marcus's face lit up with such joy that several guests reached for their tissues. She walked slowly toward him, taking in the faces of everyone who had supported them on their journey to this moment. The ceremony itself was brief but meaningful. They'd written their own vows, and when Marcus spoke about how Sarah had taught him to hope again and how she'd shown him that broken things could be made whole, there wasn't a dry eye in the audience. Sarah's vows focused on the unexpected gift of second chances and the beauty of blended families. "Marcus, you asked me to help you learn to dance, but you ended up teaching me something much more important. You taught me that love doesn't always look the way we expect it to, and that the most beautiful families are sometimes the ones we choose rather than the ones we're born into." When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Jake and Emma cheered louder than anyone. As Marcus and Sarah shared their first kiss as a married couple, both children ran up to join the embrace, creating a family hug that perfectly captured the essence of their new beginning. The reception was held in the same backyard, with tables scattered under string lights and everyone sharing food and laughter late into the evening. Sarah's favorite moment came during the father-daughter dance when she watched Marcus dance with Emma to the same song they'd danced to at the school function months ago. Halfway through the song, Jake tapped Marcus on the shoulder and asked to cut in, wanting to dance with his new sister. As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, Sarah found herself standing in the doorway of what was now their shared home, watching Marcus help Jake and Emma clean up paper plates and leftover decorations. This ordinary moment felt more precious than any of the formal ceremony traditions. Rebecca approached with the last of the wedding gifts. "You did good, sis," she said, using the familial term for the first time. "I've never seen Marcus so happy, and those kids are lucky to have you both." "I'm the lucky one," Sarah replied, meaning it completely. "A year ago, I never could have imagined this life. It's better than anything I dared to dream." Later that night, after the children were asleep and the house was quiet, Sarah and Marcus sat together on their front porch swing, the same swing where they'd shared their first real conversation about their feelings for each other. "So, Mrs. Thompson," Marcus said, trying out her new name, How does it feel to be married? It feels like coming home, Sarah replied, leaning into his embrace. Not just to you, but to this whole life we've built together. I love you, Sarah Thompson. I love you too, Marcus Thompson. All of you, you and Emma, and this beautiful, messy, perfect family we've created. As they sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars appear in the October sky, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. It had started with such a simple request: help me learn to braid my daughter's hair. But that small act of kindness had opened the door to something neither of them had been looking for, but both desperately needed. Their story wasn't a fairy tale with a perfect beginning, middle, and end. It was something better. A real-life love story built on genuine care, mutual support, and the willingness to blend two broken families into something stronger and more beautiful than either could have been alone. It was proof that sometimes the most extraordinary love stories begin with the most ordinary moments, and that the words "act like my husband," spoken in practice, can become a promise that lasts forever.